man who I'm going to be honest with you, Senator Hoskins, you look too put together and refreshed for being up all night. You should look like me, actually. I should look like you. Now, if you just reverse this, right?
Right.
So you stay up all night filibustering. Let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
The first Thursday of session, you pull through some gubernatorial appointment slate. You guys grab and filibuster them.
Right.
How did you pick gubernatorial appointments?
Well, we all know that gubernatorial appointments have to be approved within 30 days, especially if they were done during the interim. And so we knew that there was a deadline of February 2nd, this coming Friday, as far as gubernatorial appointments. Many of those gubernatorial appointments are very important, and we want to get some of them passed, but we knew that the gravity of the situation required some compromise. And so by grabbing those gubernatorial appointments and turning that into some leverage to get initial petition reform passed to protect the Missouri Constitution. That was the idea that we came up with.
So we're taping this. It's 9:36.
Yes.
On a Tuesday morning. I guess you're still on the legislative day of Monday.
We are.
There is from the radio, from my talking to Senator Rowden, from talking to Senator Eigel, there's a loose deal. What is the deal as of 9:36 that you've kind of got? I noticed that two folks that maybe are in a different caucus than you, Senator Bean and Senator Rader, are holding the floor right now.
Yes.
Which is usually a sign of, okay, you guys rest. We got to compromise. What is the compromise as of now?
Well, the compromise is that because we stood up and filibustered all night long on these gubernatorial appointments, that IP reform is going to be voted out of Senator Lane Gannon's committee today at 9:50 is when they're supposed to go in. Some of those bills are going to be combined together and voted out of committee. So had we not, in my opinion, filibustered, I'm not for sure that we could have forced the vote to get initial petition reform out of committee.
So but Senator Moon, who actually, yes, the days run together when you don't sleep, right?
Right.
Monday, when you finally came in, he grabbed the floor.
He did.
And started the filibuster of former Senator Hageman.
Right.
Now, you were in the room. I was in the room. It's a senatorial tradition. You don't bring someone else's bill up to get overridden, right?
That is true.
Not a rule, not a law, but a tradition.
Right.
Senator Moon, I think DOR was wrong.
Yes.
About what they did.
Yes.
I mean, he's kind of right.
Right.
That what they did was incorrect.
Yes. Going back to, when was that? 2021.
Well, he got elected in 20, right?
Yes.
So I think his first year he came in hot with this.
Yes.
So it's been 21, I guess. Mike Moon's right about the underlying point.
I agree.
There was a lot of fix-it. There was a lot of folks on both sides said, okay, this fix you can't do.
Right.
I'm a believer that if you did do it, who's going to say anything? But okay. So Wayne Wallingford gets appointed as DOR director.
Yes.
And I think most folks, you serve with Wayne, great guy.
He is great.
I think there's maybe 10, 12 of these, 8, 9, something like that. He has fixed all but one so far.
Right.
I mean, he's been working. Mike Moon gives him credit. He has been working at this. But I think he still holds a grudge against Senator Hageman for not doing that. Senator Hageman's up for the Department of Transportation.
Right.
I think most folks, if you live on a county road, think Hageman would be a heck of a guy to have on there.
Yes.
If you're on a lettered highway, like if you live at the end of Highway M in West Butler County, Hageman's your man. He's gonna raise hell for you. Senator Moon is holding him up because of that.
Right.
You know what I like about Mike Moon? He called him.
Yes.
And said, I'm gonna block you.
Oh, did he? I did. I was not aware of that.
That's what I've heard it from the source.
Yeah.
I kind of respect that.
I do too.
Call up and say, look, and normally it's also a Senate tradition. You don't hold up senators.
Right.
So folks that observe Mike Moon politically, he is every bit as eclectic and interesting as he seems on the floor.
Right.
A good man, a sincere man. He gets away with a lot more than you do because he's just so there is no strategy.
Right.
He's just gonna lay it out there. Right. Like the other day, he's like, I just want to be against this.
Right.
Or he said, I'm filibustering.
Yes.
I don't know. You tell me what to do.
Yeah. I'm filibustering. How long are you going to stay out there? I don't know.
Oh, and I believe him.
Right. I believe him too. I mean, he is very principled and sometimes his plan. Yeah. And very, very earnest. Sometimes his strategy, we have to discuss his strategy.
Sometimes his strategy is like, I had a little sister. She'd sit in the car and say, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And then mom would look. And he's kind of got that, I'm going to poke you until you just give in or go nuts. So he's holding up. Now, my assumption is you got this deal worked out between yourself and Senator Eigel, the two leaders of the caucus, and Senator Roloff and Senator Rowden, the two leaders of the caucus. Do you have a deal with Senator Moon?
We're in the process of talking to Senator Moon, and so hopefully Senator Moon will agree that, hey, this is a good deal. I mean, Senator Moon.
I think Kelton would pick up on that was not a yes.
that is probably true. So Senator Moon was.
What do you do in that situation? I mean, that puts you in a spot.
Senator
Moon took the first 2-hour shift.
That's right.
He's
actually took the first 4-hour shift, I believe.
He is a dude who's on your side on most of these fights. If he's not good, do you just leave him out there all afternoon to wilt?
Well,
or do you go take his back? I mean, if I'm you, that's a tough spot for me.
It is a tough spot. And obviously, I support Senator Hageman being appointed to the Missouri Department of Transportation.
He'd do a good job.
I think that he would. He's had questions about MoDOT in the past and about some of the decisions that MoDOT's made, passing an increase and then putting that into salaries. And so I think that Senator Hageman would do an excellent job as being a MoDOT commissioner.
Well, if you live on a county road and on a lettered highway in Knob-Noster,
that's right.
Tell me who better than Senator Hageman to go worry about you.
I agree.
There's going to be a lot of folks worried about Highway 70, as there should be.
Right.
But that old boy lives on that lettered highway in Knob-Noster. He probably needs Dan Hageman.
Yes. Yes, he does. He does. And Dan knows obviously a lot about the budget, a lot about MoDOT's budget. I think that Dan will be an excellent commissioner in MoDOT.
All right. So I heard Bill Eigel articulate this morning to Stephanie Bell and Randy Tobler on the Columbia radio station. We didn't have a problem with any of these particular appointees, really. But you didn't have a problem with the Journal a lot of times, too.
Right.
And you grab that.
Yes.
This is not groundbreaking stuff to hold something unrelated hostage.
No, not at all. This isn't something that's never happened before. There's plenty been, whether it's been Senator Crowell back in the day, Senator Schaaf, Senator Lager.
Who wouldn't close on a multi-million-dollar project for his district.
Right.
Was 3 miles from his house.
Yes.
And he wouldn't close on it. So unrelated. The Senate is a complicated, but it should be, right?
It should be. It should not be easy to pass bills in the Missouri Senate. And I know that, there's been some of the media out there have been like, well, the Senate hasn't done anything. Well, guess what?
Well, good.
Yes. Sometimes we need to slow things down. But as far as I know, I don't think the House has passed any bills either.
Well, the House is going to pass thousands of bills.
They probably will. But this is our fifth week of session. And you all
are going to laugh at them as they send these huge wheelbarrowfuls of paper across the rotunda. I watched you guys. You'll sit and snicker at the hopeless futility of all those bills. But, I watched you. You're the perfect person to talk about this. One day on the floor, you're reading through a bill.
Yes.
And you find a provision about clean line the House had put in.
That's right.
They say snuck in, but I don't know how much sneaking there is. When they third read a bill,
right.
It's on the internet, send it over to you guys. Mm-hmm. You perfect it and vote on it.
Yes.
That's not sneaky to me.
No.
You caught the provision.
I did.
And the whole process stopped. You had to reconsider. I watched Lincoln Huff,
mm-hmm.
who isn't always on your side on some of these procedural motions. He's the budget chair.
Right.
Senator Eigel's talking about we're going to read the budget line by line.
Yes.
I saw no back down from him.
Right.
I think folks are like, good, read the bills.
Right.
If you're going to slow things down, as enthralling as the jokes were this morning, my daughter, you did me a big favor. I was driving her to school. She thinks I have dorky jokes. And you totally bailed me out. Now I'm always like, well, I'm not Denny.
Right.
And those were classically awful jokes. I mean, totally unfunny. You would even do like pity chuckles for yourself, which I respected. But I mean, my daughter thought I was like totally not funny. Mm-hmm. You've put a new floor in for me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you're reading Senator, former state senator or former state representative Dave Munsell's book. And so I have an autographed copy of that book.
Love Dave Munsell.
Yes.
Those jokes are awful.
Yeah. They were definitely dad jokes.
They were very much dad jokes, and we're going to call them Denny jokes from now.
Yes.
But I do think your fellow senators, if someone's filibustering a bill you didn't care about,
right?
Reading the bill's nice. Going over it. I think if you're a bill sponsor and you have a problem going on the floor and going line by line through this bill that you're mm-hmm. telling your colleagues is good and should
mm-hmm.
be passed, man, I got no pity for you. That's what work is.
Right.
You getting paid. You signed up for it. Go through. I mean, I think that was to me, some of the rule changes were fine, good, whatever. But doing the work, you can't make a rule to do the work. You have to do the work.
Exactly.
And if you go on that floor, and when the FRA comes up, when mm-hmm. the education, whatever, the IP reform,
mm-hmm.
going line by line through that bill, I mean, I don't think there's one Missourian that feels a damn bit sorry for any of you guys.
Right.
If that's what you're doing.
I would agree. And we need to go through the bills
sure.
More completely because, I mean, you referred to the Don't Dig Deep bill. that a couple of years ago that actually passed, and I had questions on it, and luckily we got that retracted. But we saw the Missouri Supreme Court kick out a bill because it had more than one subject. This
Mike Moon's been preaching that.
Yes, and Mike Moon's been preaching that sermon. And in fact, I reached out to Mike and said, "Hey, I'll be glad to help you go through each bill, make sure that they're a single subject." We had bills last year with the House sent back over to the Senate.
But there's a cost, right?
There is.
If you're gonna tie up floor time,
yes,
with gubernatorial appointments or whatever, you're going to have these bigger omnibus bills. I mean, the gravity is just going to push it to, if you could perfect a bill or two a week early on, there wouldn't be these huge omnibus bills, right? It wouldn't be the need for them. Well, there's a trade-off.
Right, there is a trade-off, and we saw that in COVID when we were gone for 6 weeks. Yeah. I mean, we had these huge omnibus bills that came after that because we had not been here at the Capitol for 6 weeks because of the COVID pandemic. And so, there most certainly there is a trade-off, but I think the trade-off's worth it. No one told me when I was elected, or I didn't go around campaigning, say, I'm going to see how many bills I can pass. I want to be the senator that passed the most bills.
I've never understood Republicans' obsession with how many bills are passed.
That's right.
Isn't the point to pass fewer bills and repeal a few?
I agree.
But back to this. So, I think part of the reason why folks reacted differently to this filibuster than having to pass it so early, IP reform passed the Senate last time.
Yes.
I mean, you haven't reached the part where you had it's like if you were fixing the truck, right?
Right.
You'd go through the parts. You kind of start with the motor and work your way to transmission. So you have all the stuff that you're working on so far that has been a big kerfuffle. That all happened last year.
Yes.
Your only issue is negotiating with the House on this, right?
Right. Part of it is negotiating with the House.
Would you give up sports book to pass IP reform?
Yes, most certainly I would. Any day, every day, I would give an initial petition.
I don't know if you're watching this, but Dean Plocker, my old boss, Rod Jetton, you might grab him today, and I bet you have many things done. You could have most of the things done by February 1st. Your big compromises. And then it could all be downhill from there. You could make Rizzo or Flat Ducks in him filibuster for a little bit.
Right. I agree. Yeah, initial petition reform, protecting Missouri Constitution is that important. And
walk me through this, though, practically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've done this a while.
Yes.
You've won some elections. You're running a big one.
Right.
Hell, you're running to count the damn votes.
Yes.
Let's work this through.
Mm-hmm.
You pass IP reform through the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
You pass a similar bill you did last year.
Right.
Whatever it is, 55, whatever it is.
Right.
I've heard some smart people say concurrent majorities won't help in court. Some folks that are very much anti-abortion, they think that has real problems. And these are not haters. These are just folks giving their honest opinion.
Right.
Folks that I respect. But let's say whatever you pass, so it goes on the ballot in August.
Yes.
The realtors come in.
Right.
I mean, of all the people, don't tug on Superman's cape. Don't spit in the wind, and don't mess with Sam Licklider.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of money to beat this. And let's be honest, IP reform is not conservative, right? IP reform is not liberal. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. When the Republicans were in the minority, they put concealed carry, the Hancock Amendment on.
Yeah.
So if you're in the minority, you can't pass them to the legislature. You go around the legislature.
Right.
It's really not about anything other than if you're in the majority, you don't want people going around you. It's not really ideological. It's just power.
Right. And I would agree with that. So with initial petition reform, I mean, it solely deals with things in the Constitution. I've always said that and things need to be harder to put in the Constitution. We have bingo in the Missouri Constitution.
I think most folks in their gut agree with you.
Yes.
Should it be harder if the folks enact a statute for the legislature to go override them?
Well, some states have done that.
Isn't that a fair trade? If it's harder to put something in the Constitution, which I think most folks think it ought to be.
Right.
It ought to be harder if the folks enact a statute for you guys to just come in there and say, no.
I would agree with that. Now, some states have where you have to have a super majority
veto override,
to be like a veto override. Some states have
put it at 57%, maybe 57% of the legislature.
That could be it.
Whatever percentage. To me, that makes some sense. So you ought to mix that cocktail. But let's walk through this pragmatically. So you put this on, you go to the governor, he puts this on the ballot in August.
Right.
Realtors, I mean, you have to, even the most optimistic projections would be that if you turn this into a pro-life, pro-choice thing, that hasn't worked in a lot of states. Let's say you put this on the ballot in August. It's no more than 50-50 shot of winning, right?
Right.
I mean, Sam doesn't bluff, right? So, but let's say you do win. You're putting the abortion thing on in November. I mean, just practically, that's going to cost you some House seats, isn't it?
I don't think so. I mean,
but if you look at Texas, not exactly a blue state, Ohio, not a very similar state to Missouri, those states took this abortion thing and passed it pretty significantly. And if you put that on the ballot, on a partisan ballot, I mean, that is a concern, right? It's harder to win the independent seat with this on the ballot.
I've seen some polling that indicated that, but I've also seen some polling that indicated that it would not be harder. And I think that
you know women. I mean, you couldn't have got Michelle if you didn't understand women.
Well, that's true.
There are some women, professional women, that are generally pro-life, that are, I think this law is a little farther than where they feel comfortable with. Now, whether they take it out on other Republicans, I don't know. But I just think if you're Aaron McMullen, you don't want to see this on the ballot in November, right? It makes your life harder.
Well, I think it could.
You'll win the Secretary of State's race in a walk. I mean, hell, after you win the primary, you could go to the beach for the next 3 months and you'd win. But Aaron McMullen, that's not the case.
Well, I guess I see your point, Scott, but I guess I would disagree. I think that most of us that are pro-life, we're pro-life and not just when it's popular or not popular. And so I've always stated that, hey, I'm pro-life. I do believe in an exception for life of the mother and things like that. But when you look at some of the other reasons that they've given to legalize abortion, I mean, no matter how that baby was conceived, it's a baby. And you know, if you put
I have a lot of respect for pro-life folks.
Right.
My mom was as pro-life as you can find. I think most folks think abortion's wrong. Now, should it be illegal? There's a lot of nuance and details. I'm not an expert on abortion.
Right.
But I have a high regard. I think it's a huge mistake. It's insulting the way some people, especially in the media, roll their eyes at pro-life folks.
Yes.
But that said, I do think there's a large chunk of women that think, okay, I'm pro-life and I vote Republican.
Right.
But this law is a little much. Well, you might think this law is right where it needs to be.
Right.
And there's a lot of folks that do. I think there's a chunk of folks that be like, that's a little much for my taste. And look, other states that are more Republican than we are have said, well, this is a little much. Kansas, you know.
Yeah, Kansas. A lot of it depends on how, you know, raising the money to get your message out and explaining exactly what's going on. And so,
if the realtors put $2 million behind a no is easier to get than a yes in Missouri.
Yes.
Can you raise $3 million to pass the IP reform thing?
Well, I would hope so, but I know that Missouri Right to Life and other pro-life advocates, you know, will be working on raising that money.
But you've got to raise money for your race.
Yes, I do.
I don't figure you can be like, oh, I need money, and then by the way, another $5,000 for this. Right. I mean, that's a tough ask, right?
It is a tough ask.
So those groups have to pull that weight on their own, right?
They are going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on that.
Senator Eigel, yourself, Senator Bratton, he's got a race to worry about. Senator Moon's got a race to worry about.
Yes.
It is not as though these folks can go. It seems like it's going to be a tough lift. So let's say you get it done. I love the part. There's a contradiction I saw. I love the part about getting out-of-state people out of the state.
Yes.
The last old boy that came from the East Coast to do a daggum thing for us was Meriwether Lewis. Not one cent has done anything for us except screw us. They want to color us in on their stupid little maps and piss on us. I think that was you articulated that so well. Anybody that's from the East Coast, we should immediately get our pitchforks out and be ready because I don't trust any of them. I don't think any of them care a damn for us. But you're a member of this new caucus.
Yes.
Now, I thought the Jim Lemke ran conservative caucus was very effective. I mean, you got a lot of notches in your pistol from your time there.
Right.
Why join a Washington caucus?
Well, I wouldn't refer to it as the Washington
But caucus. I mean, it's a group out of Washington.
Well, it was originally formed at the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman Jim Jordan started that. And
he ain't from Missouri, right? He can
no, Jim Jordan's from Ohio, but
I don't like him.
Yeah,
I only like Missourians.
But we have, you know, Eric Burleson is a member of the House Freedom Caucus, and
he's a Missourian though.
He is a Missourian. He is Missourian, and so what they've tried to do is start off. You know, we're the 11th state to have a Freedom Caucus.
Do you think the way Congress works is something you'd want to replicate here? Because I think they should come here and study how we do things.
Well, I would agree with you.
I'd piss on all those people.
I would agree with you on that. But one thing that they have done is be
kind of the shits.
Well,
They have no border. They have a budget that's screwed up. Why would anybody want
a lot of problems
with those
there?
People?
But they have been able.
Jim Jordan ain't Michael Jordan. He sounds like he sucks.
Well, a lot of the conservatives in the U.S. House, obviously
they're not effective. We know that.
Well, we do have a new speaker. So we have Speaker Johnson versus Speaker McCarthy, and that's because of some of the conservatives.
He from Johnson County?
He's not from. He might be from Joko K, but not Joko Mo, where I'm from. So
he might be kidding about Bobby Boucher.
Yeah.
I just think but you can see how somebody who hears you say we got to get these four, because I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
These folks come in, and now they're liberals using the IP process.
Right.
Because if you're a Republican, you'd use the legislature, right?
Right.
They come in from out of state. They don't give a damn about us.
Right.
They don't give a damn about Clean Missouri. The funders didn't give a damn about us.
No,
they screwed the staff. What they did to the staff folks in the Missouri Capitol is so wrong. Somebody needs an ass whooping.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care about the staff people. They don't care about any of us.
Right.
They came in here to color us in on their little map, just like all these people do.
Yes.
And I'm like, hell yes, get them. And then somebody leans over and says, well, he's in the thing from why? I'm like, well, why is Denny in that? Why couldn't you just get rid of those people and look, Tim Jones, a hell of a guy.
He is.
Have Tim come in and run a Missouri thing and just don't associate with the Washington assholes.
Well, the Washington folks don't tell us what to do.
I wouldn't talk. Do you have to talk to them at all?
No, I actually don't.
I'd see that 202 and I'd be like, nope.
Actually, we go through Tim Jones. So, yeah, Tim Jones is a good guy, definitely a conservative.
Okay, now you got to admit, it was funny when you were complaining about getting kicked off your chairmanship.
Yeah, it's 11 years ago.
And then Tim pulled you off on.
That's right.
Now, that's funny, though.
And we've come around full circle. So,
but, I mean, that was funny.
And that's when I was kicked off that committee back in the House. That's what led to me being Speaker Pro Tem in the House.
I think it did, too. And, I think he was in a tight race until then. And then
we had the apple pie caucus, conservatives from Southwest and Southeast Missouri came in and supported me 100%.
Did Jeannie did she bow out?
No.
Or did you all actually have the vote?
We actually had a vote. Yes.
Yeah, I heard some of the tallies on that vote, and it was going to be tight.
Right.
I mean, you might have won it anyway.
Right.
But after that, you were winning. It was just, you were the cause of the town.
Right.
And that is a great office over in the House, that pro tem office.
It is.
It used to have that rocket toilet. That was that old school thing. Remember? I mean, you could have flushed a watermelon on that thing. All right. But quick question though. If you bring Michelle to town,
yes,
I know she's a wonderful wife.
She is. And
she stays in that awful apartment you and Sarah Boy have, the dirtiest place in town. I'm not kidding. But if you brought somebody else in, he's going to put them up and you have a meeting, where would you put them up?
I would definitely put them up at the
Courtyard by Marriott.
Courtyard Marriott,
yeah, of course.
Yes.
I mean, there's no question.
Yes.
Don't be JV. If somebody from Washington came into town, I'd have them stay at Denny's place. But if somebody from Washington, Missouri came down, or from Knobnod, somewhere good, or Johnson County, I'd put them up at the Courtyard by Marriott. And I'll tell you, the folks at United Fiber, you've approved a lot of rural broadband money.
Yes.
You want to see where it's happening, right? As you get around the state, you got to go up there and tour it. The folks in Maryville have done such a good job with rural broadband. They're actually wanting to come into St. Joseph. That's how good they're doing. I mean, it is the first time technology has let folks live on the farm. Every other technology has pushed folks to town.
Right.
That is the first technology, and they don't do it any better than up there in Dan Hageman country, up in Savannah, at United Fiber. They're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, I would agree. So
how does this end, though?
How does this end?
Yeah. I mean, can it end until you, Denny, and Caleb leave the Senate? Can it really? Can things kind of will there be able to be a Senate like you had the first 2 years until you all term limit out?
Probably not.
I think that's the truth, right?
I believe that is the truth. I've been lied to and misled too many times, and Ron Richard and I, we got along. There was things we agreed upon with things we did. He had a different leadership style, and so. I would come in and
you've hit Caleb. Caleb's hit you for 5 years.
Right.
5 years and a month.
Yes.
On a level, did you respect him taking your chairmanship?
No.
But I mean, you've thrown a lot more punches than he has in this fight, right? He may have thrown some punches behind the scenes that have more effect.
Yes, his punches have always been behind the scenes.
As far as publicly, you've hit him more. Was there a little bit of you that says, okay, all right, there you are?
Not really. I think what he did was uncalled for. I mean, the last person that I know that we got a worse punishment than.
Yeah, but you're an athlete. People forget you're the guy that threatened to whoop Eric Greitens' ass.
Well,
there's a little bit of you that I thought maybe this needs to end, and you need to drive home this weekend, and you and Michelle driving around Johnson County or going to an event somewhere. And I just think, or you're out running, like I see all the time.
Right.
A little bit of you, the competitor in you, the type A, the testosterone.
Yes,
guy.
I'm definitely a competitor. That's for sure.
I would think sometime when you calm down, you'd be like, good for you, man. Yeah. You've taken a lot of my shots, and okay. I don't like it, but I get you.
Right. Well, I don't think the crime fit the punishment. I mean, we had Maria Nadal, former state senator. She called for President Trump's assassination, and she
also said a trash nuclear bomb was going to destroy St. Louis in 2021.
That's true.
What is it, 2024 now?
That's true. I would agree with you as far as Caleb and I. So Caleb, being in leadership, he is able to do things behind the scenes as far as not refer bills. Refers bills to unfriendly committees.
Because it's on the floor and publicly on Twitter and people don't know. But yes, there is no question. Caleb, when he sees a bill from the senator from Johnson, it does go, to
file
a committee
13.
that probably, committee file 13, right?
Yes,
he probably thinks that could be helped.
Right.
But so he does throw back.
Right.
But yours is much more public. And if you were watching this, I mean, I would just think at some point you'd be like, all right, you finally, punch back. I get you.
Yeah.
All right, fair play. And really, I don't think Bill would give a damn.
Right.
Like, I thought you were a little offended as an institutionalist.
Yes.
But I don't think Bill cared at all. They took his committee. I mean, Bill's going to do his stuff on the floor.
Right. Bill's going to do his stuff on the floor.
Like, they put him off of probes. I don't think Bill cared about getting off of probes. He didn't go to the committee.
Well, I got kicked off of probes, and I do care. I mean,
but you did go to the committee.
I did go to the committee.
You attended committee.
Right.
And,
right. And, I think part of it was that. And I think I was the lone no vote on what I call the abortion FRA. And so I think that was part of the reasons I got kicked off appropriations as well. And I also lost my chairmanship.
I've done a bunch of radio shows. And sometimes it's almost like mowing your mother-in-law's yard. You mow your mother-in-law's yard. Now, Michelle's mother is probably wonderful. I've never had the pleasure to meet her. But let's just assume, hypothetically, you mow your mother-in-law's yard. No matter how hot it is and how good a job you do, and you didn't airbrush the clippings off the sidewalk, or you didn't cut the right design, or you didn't weed it up by the fence. It just kind of feels like there's nothing Caleb's going to do you guys are going to like.
Right.
Is that am I totally wrong?
No, I would agree with you on that. I would agree.
So
with you
the FRA comes up. Now I asked a couple questions. Planned Parenthood did not get $1 from Missouri this year, fiscal year.
Well,
that's what the state says.
Okay.
And look, I think OA is ran fine, right? I don't think they're active liars, right? To me, Susan Klein had a great point, which is, well, why don't we just do this on the provision of if the waiver is not accepted, it goes away.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's that makes some sense, right? Because you understand the FRA is important. You got to pass an FRA.
I agree that the FRA
is important. You know that.
Right.
You represent real folks in Johnson County.
Yes.
You can't not have an FRA.
Right.
That's just not real.
Right.
And what I thought she made a mistake. She's usually pretty good at staying on message. When she said, I heard a quote, now I didn't hear this, but I read it where people that,
right.
I don't mind if rural hospitals close. Now, I don't think she means that.
Yeah, I don't think she means that.
We've all said a few things. I don't think Susan Klein actually means she's okay with that.
Yeah, knowing Susan Klein the way that I do, I would agree. We had, this all started back because in 2020,
I remember,
and we had the pro-life language in the budget bills. The Missouri Supreme Court said, hey, you can't keep them in there. And so we filed a separate bill to defund Planned Parenthood and things like that from the FRA bill.
Right now, if you're under Susan Klein's watch, under your watch as a state legislator, no abortions in the state.
Right.
That's what success is, right?
That is one of the measurements.
$0 to Planned Parenthood.
Now that I'm not for sure.
Okay, well, you're an accountant. I mean, I would take your word for it. Is the state of Missouri cutting checks to Planned Parenthood?
Well, and I'm not on appropriations anymore, but I'll find that out.
Well, I'm just saying, though, you're the type of guy, you're not going to bullshit you.
Right.
If you sit down with Ken Zellers and he says, look, man, we're not paying him.
Right.
Here's where we paid him. Here's the accounts we paid him out of previously. Under these new regs, we're not paying him. Is that good enough for you?
That's good, but I still think that
Ken Zellers is a professional,
right? I still
honorable guy,
right? I
prefer Sarah Steelman too, but I mean, I get it. Ken Zellers, he ran revenue well. He's a good guy,
right?
I don't think he lies.
No, he seems like a nice guy. What I would say is that we may not be using funds to pay for abortions because abortions are illegal in the state. But somebody gave this example to me. I know you got a daughter in high school.
Yeah.
And so
keep an eye on.
Yeah, exactly. Keep an eye on her. And so you catch her with some cigarettes, and you're like, where did you get this money for cigarettes? Well, sorry, Dad, I used some of my lunch money to buy cigarettes. And so then the next day, and you break them up, throw them out, and then the next day she comes back and says, "Well, Dad, I need some money for lunch money." And you're like, "Okay, well here you go. I know,
100% agree.
I know you're not using it for cigarettes."
I totally agree with you. Well, it's fungible, right? That's what accountants would call it.
Right.
So it's fungible. I totally understand it. Yes. I get the argument. Makes total sense to me. You're right. They are definitely propping up the overhead of Planned Parenthood to fund abortions or to send people to. Now I guess they send them Illinois.
Yeah, or Kansas. I mean, there's videos out there that
100% agree with you. But what if the state's not paying them at all? I mean, if you don't give your daughter the lunch money, if there's zero money going to them, that could be no money's not fungible, right?
Right.
Money is fungible, but no money is not fungible.
Right.
What if there's no money going to them?
Well, what we've seen in videos, and you can go out there.
I mean, not for pap smears, not for birth control. If the state of Missouri, if there is no canceled check that the state can produce to Planned Parenthood or whatever group that you would say is Planned Parenthood shell group, because I mean, you're an accountant, you know how to do this quicker than me, but I get it. They can move some money around. If there is no money going to Planned Parenthood, is it worth risking the FRA over?
No, it would not be worth it if there is no money that could go to Planned Parenthood or has been going to Planned Parenthood. But what we have to fight now is, and there's videos out there, Project Veritas. I mean, that you're going into Kansas City and you've got teenage girls because
So how going into Kansas City. Sellers convince you and show you there's no money going to Planned Parenthood?
Well, let's have a discussion.
Yeah. But I mean, if I was you, I'd pick the accountant out. If I was Ken, and I'd sit down and be like, okay, this is where we used to pay them.
Right.
We don't.
Right.
Tell me where we pay them.
Right.
We don't. If that, I understand that, certainly. I have not spoken to them personally, but I understand their point is they're very proud of the fact that because of the regs and the things, other laws you guys have done,
that we passed,
you've ring fenced them out, and they don't get any money from the state.
And we want to continue to do that.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, I mean, look, you run on it. People will talk about complaining about it, but every Republican runs on guns, abortion, and taxes, right?
Right.
Every one of them.
Right.
And now probably something to do with gays, I guess. But I guess that's House members. But every Republican. So the last part of session, you get Dean Plocker in a room, and you're like, "Look, dude, you really want a sports book? Okay. IP reform. I guess. Would you want your version of it?"
I prefer the congressional districts. Yeah, the concurrent majority with the congressional districts.
Well, 5 of 8.
5 of 8. 5 of 8. Yeah, so 50% plus.
And I'm not a lawyer. I break more laws and have to hire more lawyers than I probably.
I'm not a lawyer either.
But I've seen people that are truly pro-life that want to see an IP reform to make it harder to change it to blunt the pro-choice people. They say, number one, since they've already started collecting signatures, whatever you do in August, the November will be under the old rules. Now, nobody can say what a judge is going to do.
Right.
But smart guys that are on the team, they want to see you win. They say if you do a concurrent majority, it's unconstitutional because one man, one vote. Now, I don't know if that's right or not, but what would you have to hear and who would you have to hear it from to give you what you felt like was a credible opinion on that?
Well, I think I've seen lawyers comment on both sides. I've seen former judges comment on both sides. So,
okay.
I'm
sure that's right. I mean, if there's an opinion,
that's right. Lawyers if you pay a lawyer enough, and they will give you the opinion that you want. And I think that's happened on both sides. But it's not just the pro-life issue. I mean, we have
57%. You can pretty well lock in. That'll hold court muster. Concurrent majority, there are some legitimate questions, right? Which one would you prefer?
I would prefer concurrent majority.
And take the chance on the court?
I would take the chance with the court and have concurrent majority, which would be 50% plus one person statewide, and then 50% plus one person in 5 out of 8 congressional districts.
Why don't you're going to represent the whole state? You're going to represent Dexter, your Secretary of State. Right now, they have to go get signatures. And let's be honest, if you're at the Hy-Vee and Lee Summit, those nice suburban folks will sign that paper, and they act like it's no big deal.
Yes.
If we went down to Hickory Log in Dexter, you tell me some son of a gun walks up to me and says, "Would you sign this and give me your address from the with a thing from the government?" I'm like, "Hell no!"
That's right.
I don't care what it's for. It could be a proclamation for motherhood.
That's right.
Go piss off. Why don't you make those folks go to Scotland County, go to Worth County, go to Rolla? Ask David Stillman to sign something. Try to get them to do that. I mean, good luck with that. I think it'd be harder to get on the ballot. It would be more fair for the whole state, and harder to get on the ballot if you made everybody get the signatures from the places where we don't sign stuff. Because now Cape people would, but there's only so many Cape people. I guess the way they've drawn it, Arnold people would sign anything. They're just St. Louisans. But you get into real Jeffco down in Festus, they probably ain't real. They probably think it's your governor out looking for a meth lab.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be nice to do both and make these signature gatherers? Because I've met so many signature gatherers. Like I like to go when I'm in St. Louis. I like to go to the Sioux Lord Farmers Market. It's great, love it. They got an old boy from Neelyville, where I'm from, brings his tomatoes up in the summertime. Wonderful. But the folks that are getting them signatures look a little odd to me, right? They kind of got them whole earring thing, they got that multi green stuff in their hair. That old boy ain't gonna get any signatures in Greenville, Missouri.
Probably not.
Why don't you make them some of the guns as part of your deal? And I think if you put sportsbook on the table, Dean will give you what you want. I think Rizzo may not, but Dean would.
Right.
Why don't you? But I'd ask Rizzo, why don't you go get the entire state to sign up? Because it's going to affect the entire state. Right now, there's very little input from the North Missouri and Southeast Missouri in this whole process.
I would agree.
You really think Wendell Bailey and Willis Springs is going to sign a piece of paper with a government seal on it? I don't think so. I mean, there's no way, right?
Right.
I think it ought to be harder, but I think the signature gathering is a fundamental piece of that. It would add a large chunk of money, and I'm not sure these liberal groups, the folks they hire, I mean, hell, I just don't see it. If you're up at Tarkio or Rockport, do you think some green-headed dude's going to get you to sign a piece of paper in Rockport? I'm suspicious.
Yeah, I would be suspicious, I guess, as well. I mean, we all have those. We are, if a country hick like me goes into downtown St. Louis and tries to get signatures, it probably had the same effect.
I think we're more trusting because we talk slower and they like us. And every time they want to run for office, what do? They go get them some jeans and find a tractor and take a picture in front of them.
That's right.
So, I mean, I think we're just nicer people, frankly, than they are, if you want the truth. And more folks are just akin to liking us.
Right.
But, city folks has their place too. I don't know where, but so let me give me a prediction. I think you're going to get an IP reform bill, right?
I hope so. Yes.
I think you can rightly tell the folks in Missouri, we sped this up. I mean, you passed one last year.
Right. I mean, have you
passed one earlier, right?
Right. Have you seen a bill move as fast? Well, move as slow, obviously at the beginning, but over the past week, move as fast as it did. I mean, we got all the bills referred to committee on Thursday. Had a committee hearing yesterday on IP reform. IP reform is going to be voted out today. So
appointments look good.
Right.
You got a text.
Yeah.
Appointments are good.
Yeah. Appointments are good. Great. So that's wonderful. But if the Freedom Caucus would not have done what we did and said that, hey, protecting the Constitution.
Was surprised when you grabbed onto that. I think he was going to refer it. I just think you're right. It wasn't a sense of urgency. That's probably true. I think he was probably surprised when he's like, well, okay, I'll do that.
Right.
But I think he's like, whoa, I didn't know. I do think you got that thing to the floor faster.
I would agree. Well, it's always been about policy. I mean, we have a lot of different personalities in the Senate. I don't hate anyone in the Senate by any means, but it's always been about policy. And like I said before, we've talked about the pro-life issue, but we haven't talked about the gun grabbers and the pro-red flag laws. They're coming, especially
the gun folks. When you first got elected, if I'd have told you there's an actual pro-gun control group, you'd have been like, there is not. There is.
Oh, yes.
That Moms Demand Action is well organized. And they draw crowds, and they make a difference. They get involved in the Democrat primary.
They do.
They can make a difference.
They can. And that's
one of the reasons. I've never seen that in my life until the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons that initial petition reform has to pass, to protect the Constitution, to make it harder for some of these gun grabbers to come in and ban an AR, from you being able to buy an AR-15 or a handgun, or putting a unreasonable sales tax on ammunition. So, we talk a lot about the pro-life issue, but it's also the pro-Second Amendment issue too. We can't have a lot of these out-of-state special interest groups coming in and trying to fund initiatives to ban the sale of AR-15s.
So you get IP reform to the Senate, which feels like to me you did it before. There's usually those deals somewhat hold up. What do you go to next?
Education reform, I think, is one of the things.
What's that look like to you?
Well, I know Senator Koenig bill has that. It's the second bill on the calendar, so I think that's probably the next bill that would come up.
If you're able to sit down with a professional and look at the state's books and realize there's no money going to Planned Parenthood, You said that'd be enough for you. I don't know that it'd be enough for the others, the entire Senate. Do you think that's just the next hill to die on?
That could be the next hill to die on the FRA bill, but I guess we'll see. We've been told that the FRA bill is not coming up first. That I think the quote was it's not ready for prime time.
I didn't understand that. I mean, the FRA bill is probably exactly like the one 4 years ago, right?
Right.
It just changed the days.
Well, yeah, change the days, eliminated the sunset on it. So, and then it does include the pro-life language that we had been promised that would happen in special session 2.5 years ago.
But my point is, like, how is the bill not ready for prime time? It's not like it's a new concept.
Right.
I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Kit Bond invented this.
Right. You're just changing the sunset. I don't know. I wasn't the one that said.
Yeah, man, that's just odd to me. How's it not ready for prime time? Because like, it's not as though you're inventing a new legislative conception or a new program. This is the same damn program. You just say, well, I'm going to take this day out and change this one,
right,
or whatever. I mean, it's not. It would be almost harder to make it not ready for prime time than for it not to be ready for prime time. I mean, you just kind of change some numbers in the thing. That's interesting to me. Senator Huff did not appear like he was ready to lay that over.
I'm not for sure.
Well, I mean, if it was your bill and they said your bill's not ready for prime time, it's first on the calendar, you'd be like, well, buddy, prime time seems like about 10:15 on Tuesday, right? We're ready to go.
There will be a lot of robust debate and discussion, I know, on that.
But I mean, if I'm Lincoln, if it was your bill, I'd be like, dude, it's my bill. I'll decide if it's ready for prime time.
Right, right. Well, and you know, with the governor's, obviously the state of the state last week, the Senate Appropriations Committee is going to be meeting quite a bit and need to be meeting in committee. So if you bring up that FRA bill the way it is now, there's going to be a lot of debate and discussion, and you will be canceling appropriations committees probably in order to get it.
I know you've got rally to go to today. A lot of things going on.
Yes.
Let me, Mike Parson, your relationship with him, it feels like it was two guys pretty well ideologically aligned. There was some frustrations. Then it feels like that relationship is, I don't want to overstate, but it feels like it's certainly been on the mend in the last year and a half. Yeah,
I've served with Governor Parson for quite some time. You know,
there's a personal affinity when he talks about you.
Yes, and you know, I think that Governor Parson's done about as good a job as he could have. Are there things that I would have done differently? Most certainly. Are there things that he would have done differently if he was in my shoes as a state senator? Most certainly. I think that he has the people's best interest in mind when he does things. You know, obviously, you know, I say that, you know, we're not all Republican clones of each other, even within the Freedom Caucus. And so we vote differently on things. We have different interests and likes and dislikes, and take a look at differently the way that we look at things. But for the most part, you know, Senator Parson has always been honest and open with me. Anytime that I've called or texted him and said, hey, I'd like to meet up, I met with him, or if he can't meet, I met with his staff. And so I do appreciate that. And I mean, we've gone through a lot of different things together. I mean, whether it was Governor Greitens resigning, whether it's, you know, so we've been a lot through the ups and downs and hills and valleys together, and fought through those things. So
I think I watched him when he wanted that ag bill done. Thought it was one of his best hours as governor.
Yes.
He compromised. He reached out to folks.
He did.
I thought very seldom at the end of a person's career can they make some of those moves. Right. I really respected the fact he wanted something, he believed in it, and he made, and part of that was you, right? Probably the biggest part was the relationship with you.
Yes.
Nobody runs for Secretary of State to be Secretary of State. The last one would be an example of that, and the one before that, and the one before that. If you're governor, what will your time in the Senate have taught you about how to deal with the Senate?
Well, not if I'm governor, if I'm Secretary of State, or just if I'm not anything.
You're the unicorn. It's not like Jay Ashcroft, Robin Carnahan, Jason Kander, Matt Blunt. I mean, just name all of them that ran for the next office, which is nothing. I like ambition is good. The only way you get to move up is you do a good job as Secretary of State, right?
Right.
But if you do run, what will you try to take away? I remember when I was, 10 years ago when I was in the Senate. What will you take away?
I think some of the relationships that I've built and relationships and being a fighter, fighting for my conservative values.
I mean, can you imagine Governor Hoskins sitting in his office and some rabble rouser, son of a gun, from the burnt district is just giving you hell. There's got to be a part to be like, I remember when I did that.
Yeah,
I remember back.
I've been there, done that. There. Yeah, touche. You make a good point there. But
it's almost like you pay for your raising, right?
Right.
And you may be like, well, some of the stuff I used to do, I can't be too mad about that guy.
Right. Well, I think the lesson to learn, no matter what happens after being in state senate, is, fight for what you believe in, stand up. I've never been one to just sit on my hands and play patty cake and try to get along with everybody else. But, I have a lot of convictions, and hopefully I'm remembered as someone that stood up and fought for what they believe in. And that's the biggest lesson.
How's the campaign going?
Campaign's going very well.
Think Caleb's going to run for Congress? Bail out of your race?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what
possible.
Caleb.
Right? I used to think it wasn't possible, but if Blaine Luke Meyer calls you, I mean, what a statesman. Blaine Luke Meyer is a serious guy. That might be the only thing, but I think that's a legit thing, right? If Blaine Luke Meyer calls it, I want you to replace me. Boy, that's I think that might.
It would be.
You might have one less opponent in a month.
Right. It would be tough to. It would be tough to say no to Congress.
Wouldn't it have been funny if Tony would have ran?
Yes, that would have been funny, and just had 2 Luke Meyers.
Yeah, well, just one.
Right. Yeah, the name idea of Tony Luke Meyer would have sky.
I bet Tony would have been real small on the sign.
Right.
Luke Meyer would have been really big. Yes. German name, but that Tony might have been real small.
Yeah, it probably would have just said Luke Meyer.
Yeah, it might have just said that.
Yeah, and then because most average folks, I mean, still, there's people that I still get.
Ike Skelton, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Yep, there's people today that call me to ask me, hey, when I'm in DC, can you get me tickets to the White House? And I'm like, well, actually, I'm in Jeff City.
Oh, and all these House members are all been out of shape about this constituent thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously, if you're in Central Missouri, you get some constituent calls because they be working for the state. But for the most part, people call your office needing federal stuff.
Right.
I mean, is the truth.
Exactly.
Well, Diddy Hoskins, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Chiefs Super Bowl, Chiefs -1.5. You got to have to pick the Chiefs, right, running statewide.
Oh, yeah. Chiefs 27-24.
I like that. Kelton, what we got?
I think the Chiefs are going to hold them at 3. I think 21-3.
21-3. Wow. Kelton would take the hometown if there was, the line was, 15. I'm going to say I go Chiefs, but I'm going to go 17-14 in a good game.
Yeah.
Senator Hoskins, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
We will see you Sunday on This Week in Missouri Politics. Governor Mike Parson joins us.